the notion that everyone should be treated equally, which was universally acclaimed, graduated into affirmative action. The notion that all ideas should start even in the race graduated into a kind of anarchy against which there is resistance. In the political world, the notion that if you sought improvement in human life, you had only to summon the attention of government and extend its mandate to cover that problem, didn't work out, i.e. the problems persisted. The notion that communists could be won around simply by sweet-talking them into reason, which was what FDR and Truman for a while thought didn't work out. They continued to arm and to mobilize a dramatic arsenal of world-killing weapons. So all of those premises of liberalism tended to have shaky knees, as a result of which the conservative alternative took on life. You could certainly never have predicted in 1950 that there would be a national debate over the flat tax. Just as an example, to give you a dramatic example, nor could you have predicted that the Democratic Party that its spokesman would say the time has come to resist big government. All of these are changes wrought by experience. Now, experience doesn't teach us everything. One has to renew one's learning, which is why we're both here. But it certainly has, I think, vindicated certain positions I took back then, which were more unpopular than they should have been. A liberal tended to believe that the consummate doer of good is the government, state action. They also tend to believe that whatever is created by an individual belongs, if not de facto, de jure, to the government, and it is up to the government to decide how much that individual can retain of his earnings, as in the progressive income tax. Liberals also tend to believe that nothing is truly knowable. John Stuart Mill put it very keenly when he said, as long as there is a single dissent from any position, it can't be said that a position is conclusively arrived at. The philosophers call that epistemological pessimism, and conservatives don't believe that. They believe two things. Number one, that some truths are preternaturally true, and that to the extent that we don't know the absolute true position, one has to proceed on the operative assumption that that which is as true as you can get becomes something you strive after. Academic freedom back in the 50s declined theoretically to say that the Gettysburg Address is superior to the Marxist Manifesto. How do you know it is? So I think that kind of hopelessness is an aspect of liberalism in interesting paradoxical contrast to its total self-assurance.
Am I my brother's keeper?
No, preternaturally you should be. That is to say, you should feel an obligation to look after, to help look after people who need looking after.
Well, if one doesn't pretend to be enthused about turning to government, but feels the need for my brother to be kept, not without his effort, but for my brother to be helped, where do we turn?
Well, We're talking about a democracy, right?
Yes.
If, let's say, an act to help crippled children. All right, if a democratic government issues the Crippled Children's Act, we have to presuppose, since it's a democratic government, that the majority of the people want it. Now, if the majority of the people want it, what are they doing? They're saying to Washington, tax everybody in order to finance the Crippled Children's Act. Now, that presupposes that they are willing to be taxed. So the interesting question becomes, to what extent are the exertions of the majority aimed at the minority who wouldn't go along? Let's say the Crippled Children Act of 1996 is passed with a 75% vote in a Congress that reflects the wishes of his constituencies. Then you see 75% of the American people are in favor of the Crippled Children's Act. Well, then why don't they simply finance it themselves? There were at the turn of the century, there were 100,000 agencies in America that were engaged in officially doing good. You know, little church agencies, tents, mothers help us, whatever. The only difference that I can discover between the approach in which people do their own good through their own resources is that they want to get the 25%. It's an act aimed at people who don't consider that crippled children is their responsibility. But that's a long way around, isn't it?
It is indeed, and it is a democratic way. You don't object to that?
I object very much to the government undertaking to do anything that can be done by a non-government agency. That's the so-called doctrine of subsidiarity. No government agency should undertake anything that can be done socially, and no higher unit of government should undertake anything that can be done by a lower unit. Articulated first by Leo XIII, reiterated by 4 or 5 popes, and generally endorsed in the secular community. So if you say to me, okay, the work of the Red Cross can't be done by the Red Cross, it's got to be done by the Department of Human Welfare, then I say, okay, if it's got to be, it's got to be. But prove it first. And I don't see any such proof for many of the measures that we have enacted. Well, the only position I can think of offhand that I defended then and wouldn't now is, I believe, very strongly in outlawing drugs. I no longer believe that.